Günaydın. Buongiorno. Selamat pagi. Bonjour. Buenos dias. Sabah al-khair. And good morning. Honestly, when I was thinking how to start and what to write for my opening speech, the first thing came into my mind is this question. Shall I start in a formal way, or should I do it differently? And then I decided to make it different and think out of the box, simply because we are gathering here from different nations all around the globe, in the land of peace, Kingdom of Bahrain, to discuss and share our experience in innovation, technology, enterprise, and entrepreneurship. Your Excellency, Dr. Abdelghani Shaweikh, Secretary General of Higher Education Council. Your Excellency, Professor Amr Azzat Salama, Secretary General of Association of Arab Universities. Professor Wahib Al-Khaja, Chairman of the Board of Trustees. Professor Ghassan Awad, President of Applied Science University. Professor David Phoenix, Vice Chancellor of London South Bank University. Professor Charles Egbo, President of the Chartered Institute of Building. Professor Paul Ivy, Deputy Vice Chancellor and Chief Business Officer of London South Bank University. Honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you to each and every one of you for being here with us today. We are very delighted to be able to welcome those of you that's already been with us from our last conference, as well as who joined us this time to participate and to be part of this memorable moment. A big thanks also must go to all the attendees who accepted our invitation and give us the honor to have them with us today. Once again, welcome all. And now, let's call on the stage Professor Ghassan Awad, President of Applied Science University, and Professor Paul Ivy, Deputy Vice Chancellor and Chief Business Officer of London South Bank University.
Your Excellency, Dr. Abdelghani Shaweikh, Secretary General of the Higher Education Council, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of London South Bank University, I'm delighted to welcome you to this international conference on innovation, technology, enterprise, and entrepreneurship. I wish at the outset to express my thanks and a warm appreciation to the Applied Science University and London South Bank University Organizing Committee and the local and international scientific committees for their work in making this conference possible. Without their dedication and hard work over the past year, we simply would not be here. I would also wish to give my appreciation to everyone who has submitted their work to this conference. We have almost 70 contributions from colleagues representing some 26 organizations from 18 countries around the world. This is a global conference. The next 2 days provides us with a valuable opportunity to learn from each other, to test opinions, and to work up and develop and build a shared body of knowledge. It is also time through conference, our dinner this evening, and other meetings to make contacts with each other that I hope will prove valuable to you in your continued work in the years to come. The subject matter of this conference has a global importance. It is key to emerging economies across the world, and critically to releasing the opportunities inherent in our communities. And this is an aspect which is across the world also. I hope you are able to take maximum the benefit from everything the next few days have to offer you. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our conference.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning. Your Excellency, Dr. Abdelghani Shaweikh, Secretary General of the Higher Education Council, representing His Excellency Dr. Majid bin Ali Naimi, Minister of Education and Chairman of the Higher Education Council in the Kingdom of Bahrain, and patron of this conference. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the International Conference on Innovation, Technology, Enterprise, and Entrepreneurship, and a very warm welcome to the Kingdom of Bahrain, the Kingdom of Coexistence, Tolerance, and Peace. I would like to share with you a few things about the university first, please, if you don't mind. We are a private university. We have been around for 15 years since establishment. Professor Wahib Al-Khaja, chairman of the Board of Trustees, was the first president for 10 years, in fact. And I have been building on his achievement for the last 5 years. I'm very proud, and we are all proud of the accreditation by the Higher Education Council. This is a major achievement for us, and it has opened doors already for us. We are now recognized in Jordan, and we can recruit Jordanian students at bachelor and master's level. Other achievements, of course, include our ISO certification. The latest one we have achieved is ISO 21001 2018, and it's dealing with educational organizations, management systems. So it's dealing with academic processes, in addition to our ISO 9001 2015, which is dealing with administrative processes. So we're very proud of the ISO achievements. On the university's rankings front, we are very proud of our achievements in the QS Arab region university rankings, where we have gone up to 37 from 45 last year. We are 301 plus in the Times Higher Education Impact Rankings, another achievement, and we are number 25 in the Arab region for the Green Metric Universities Rankings. Yet another achievement. All our programs achieve full confidence by the Bahrain Quality Assurance Authority. Another achievement, of course, the Higher Education Academy Accredited Center. We have achieved accreditation last year. We have now 55 fellows, senior fellows, and we have a principal fellow as well in the university. Almost 50% of our staff have achieved the fellowship of the Higher Education Academy, which is known now as Advanced HE. And we have got some indications last week because we had the center to be accredited for 3 more years. So we had the visit, and we are expecting good news. Of course, our achievements are reflected in our students' achievements. Last year, in terms of sports, our students have won the football tournament of universities, the table tennis, and we were second in volleyball. Another achievement is our students developing an application called Al-Faz'a to deal with car breakdowns. It was an Injaz competition. They won a Company of the Year 2019 in Bahrain, and they represented the Kingdom of Bahrain in Oman recently in the Injaz Arab competition, in fact, and they have won 2 prizes, Boeing STEM Challenge and Injaz Best Product in the Arab world. Just some key facts about the conference now. We have received about 90 plus abstracts. In total, we have 69 research papers. Researchers from 16 countries have had their papers included. We have produced proceedings of the highest quality, 700 pages of knowledge and research findings. All papers were reviewed externally, internally, and by our colleagues from the Higher Education Council who are here. I'm really grateful for all your support. Dr. Manan and Dr. Diya and everybody from the HEC, we're really grateful. We have 2 keynote speakers, and we have a gala dinner speaker for tonight. The research themes include innovation, entrepreneurship, IT, education, project and knowledge management, sustainability, building information modeling, financial innovation. And we will be having in the final session best papers from ASU, from LSBU, and from the CIOB for best research paper, 2 best innovation papers, and 1 best research methodology papers. And certificate of attendance will be presented in the final session of the conference, because we know what happened in the final session of the conference. So if you want to receive a certificate of attendance, it's the final session for you. We are very proud of the 16 nations who have submitted papers to this conference, and we thought this is an innovation to include all of them. And some of them are just visiting us for the first time in Bahrain, and I'm sure they are really impressed with the weather and the quality of life in our kingdom. I want to share with you a few slides about some data from the World Economic Forum. competitiveness report for the last 7 years. We have stored all these reports in a central database in the university now, and we can generate the reports to compare Arab nations or all nations if we wanted to. And thanks to my colleagues in the ICT division, Mr. Rifat and Mr. Shadia. So for the last 7 years, we have been watching what's happening in Bahrain in comparison to other nations. I would like to share with you some of the data. You may not be able to see it, that's why I got a print out because of the font, but I will read it for you. So the first one, if you look at innovation capability, Bahrain 7 years ago was 73, we are now 65. Next to it is Egypt, and then Jordan and Kuwait and Lebanon and Morocco and Saudi Arabia and UAE. And we can see the trends. When it's going down, it's better. So if the graph is lower, then it's better than if you are high. Because this is the ranking of 140 nations by the World Economic Forum to see where you are. So in terms of innovation capability, the position of Bahrain now is 65 amongst 140 nations. If I look at the higher education and training tertiary education, the second one, you can see the trend. We were 78 some years back, and now we are 68. Many nations are above Bahrain, which is an indication that Bahrain is doing really well, in fact. If we look at the quality of math and science education, unfortunately, they only had it for 5 years, and you can see the quality of math and science education in Bahrain. 5 years ago or 7 years ago, we were 77, and after 5 years, Bahrain is ranked number 31 in the Arab region, which is fantastic achievement once again. If we look at ICT adoption, we cannot be positive in every area. The trend, unfortunately, it has gone up now, which is not good for Bahrain. So we were 36 last year and 46 this year in terms of ICT adoption. So we have to be careful with some trends which go upwards. The trend should be downwards in order to prove that we are doing well. But still, the number 46 out of 140 nations is a very, very big achievement. If you look at the quality of infrastructure, Bahrain is ranked number 31 in the world. United Arab Emirates 12, Saudi Arabia 34, Morocco 53, Lebanon unfortunately 89, and Jordan 74, and Egypt has improved immensely, 52. Now if we look at labor market efficiency, which is very, very interesting, from the data we have generated, Bahrain now is number 33, United Arab Emirates is number 34. I think Bahrain now is number 1 in terms of labor market efficiency. The efficiency of labor in Bahrain is more efficient than all the Arab nations listed there, which is a very, very major achievement, I think. Now, the reason for having this conference, please, as you know, everybody is talking about artificial intelligence and intelligent systems and virtual reality and automation, and there are some statistics there. By 2022, 75 million jobs may be displaced by automation. But 133 million jobs will be created, a net gain of 58 million. So we have no choice but to engage with the new technologies, the innovation, the enterprise we're talking about today. We need to train our students, and we need to reskill maybe the workforce. And that's why this conference is really, really important. Everybody is talking about the fourth industrial revolution and the knowledge economy, and the way it's going to change the way we live and work. So you can see how societies have changed from agricultural to industrial to the knowledge economy. And everybody now is talking about the knowledge economy. In the Industrial Revolution 1, it was based around mechanization, textile, you remember steam and water power. The Industrial Revolution 2 was based around electricity and mass production. Industrial Revolution 3 based around automation and computers and electronics, and the Industrial Revolution 4, where everybody is talking about it now, Industry 4, people refer to it, or Education 4, it's all about cyber-physical systems. Everything will be automated, cyberspace, and so on. So it's really important for us to have this conference. And everybody was talking about science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM subjects, and its importance in terms of innovation and enterprise. But I think we should move more into the application, which is automation, intelligence, simulation, and integration. And our students should be equipped these days with skills like creativity, entrepreneurship, innovation. And because artificial intelligence is becoming dominant, emotional intelligence will become really important. So we have to provide our students with the right skills. I would like to conclude by acknowledging once again the patron of the conference honorary chairs, honorary guests, contributors, and authors, session chairs, speakers, partners, scientific committee chaired by Professor Yazid Bou, and organizing committee chaired by Mr. Abdullah Khaja. The Higher Education Council, I'm really grateful for all your support. Your Excellency, Dr. Abdulghani Shweikh, and my colleagues, Dr. Adhiya, and I know Dr. Amanar, she read every single paper maybe and gave us feedback, so I'm really grateful for that. And I would like to thank our MC, Ustaza Ruqayya as well. Thank you, Ruqayya. I'm really proud today that we have so many people coming all the way from Australia, from Canada, from South Africa, from UK, from Turkey, from Lebanon, from Jordan, from United Arab Emirates, from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and other places. Please forgive me if I've forgotten any, to be in this conference. And many of those people are attending today. In fact, they were my students in Salford doing their PhDs with me, and now they have become full professors. So a special welcome to all of them. Thank you very much. Enjoy the conference.
Dr. Abdulghani Shweikh, Secretary General of Higher Education Council, is now invited on the stage to deliver his speech on behalf of His Excellency Dr. Majid bin Ali Al-Naimi, the Minister of Education.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أصحاب السعادة، الإخوة والأخوات، أعضاء الهيئة الأكاديمية، السادة الحضور، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. في البداية يسعدني أن أنقل إليكم جميعا تحيات وتقدير سعادة الدكتور ماجد بن علي النعيمي، وزير التربية والتعليم، رئيس مجلس التعليم العالي. كما أتقدم بخالص الشكر للجنة المنظمة على حسن الإعداد لأعمال هذا المؤتمر الدولي الهام، ولجميع الشركاء على جهودهم الكبيرة في اختيارهم الموفق لموضوع غاية في الأهمية، ألا وهو الابتكار والتكنولوجيا والمشاريع وريادة الأعمال، وما يطرحه من بحوث علمية مبتكرة تتميز بثراء معرفي متنوع ومؤثر ل69 ورقة علمية أعدها 130 باحث من 16 دولة، لدلالة على التعاون المثمر والمميز بين جامعة لندن ساوث بانك ومعهد تشارتر للبناء مع جامعة العلوم التطبيقية، تصب في سياق التحولات الاقتصادية التي تشهدها المنطقة والعالم، وترتبط جذرياً بأبرز القضايا التي تركز عليها الاستراتيجيتين الوطنيتين للتعليم العالي والبحث العلمي في مملكة البحرين، وفي الوقت ذاته تتوافق مع ما تحرص مؤسسات التعليم العالي على تحقيقه من خلال مراكزها للإبداع وريادة الأعمال التي تستهدف الاستثمار في عقول الشباب وأفكارهم الإبداعية، استناداً إلى الرؤية الاقتصادية لمملكة البحرين 2020-2030، والتي تولي عناية كبرى بتوسيع قاعدة الابتكار في جميع القطاعات وتوظيف التقنية وريادة الأعمال في جميع مناحي الحياة، مما يسهم في تحول المملكة نحو اقتصادا أكثر تنوعا قائما على الثروة المعرفية التي لا تنضب. الحضور الكريم، لقد أولى مجلس التعليم العالي وأمانته العامة خلال الفترة الراهنة عناية كبيرة لتشجيع الابتكار وتوظيف التكنولوجيا الحديثة وريادة الأعمال بمؤسسات التعليم العالي من خلال مبادرات الخطة التشغيلية لمجلس التعليم العالي 2019-2022، والتي انطلقت من محور برنامج عمل الحكومة المتعلق بضمان جودة الخدمات التعليمية، والمتمثل في الاستمرار في تطوير قطاع التعليم العالي والبحث العلمي ومخرجاته لخدمة القطاعات الأخرى، وأهداف الاستراتيجيتين الوطنيتين للتعليم العالي والبحث العلمي، والتي تصب في مجملها نحو الارتقاء بأداء مؤسسات التعليم العالي بصورة شاملة بما يواكب متطلبات التنمية واحتياجات سوق العمل، وذلك من خلال تحقيق التنمية المهنية لأعضاء هيئة التدريس ودعم قدراتهم البحثية وتطوير المناهج الدراسية وتحديثها لتتواكب مع التكنولوجيا الحديثة والاستفادة من تطبيقات تكنولوجيا التعليم في العملية التعليمية، والعمل على إيجاد مناخ جامعي يشجع على الابتكار وتحقيق التوازن بين التخصصات الإنسانية والتخصصات العلمية والتقنية، إضافة إلى تعزيز ثقافة الابتكار وريادة الأعمال وتطوير البحث العلمي، وحث مؤسسات التعليم العالي على الاستفادة مما توفره الأمانة العامة من فرص لتعزيز التعاون مع جهات إقليمية ودولية للارتقاء بدور المؤسسات في مجال تنفيذ البحوث ذات الأولوية الوطنية وإنتاج بحوث علمية وابتكارات تجسر الفجوة بين مخرجات التعليم العالي واحتياجات سوق العمل، وتعزز الاستثمار في التعليم العالي، إضافة إلى تشجيعها على التعاون مع جامعات عالمية مرموقة بلغ عددها 11 جامعة، ومثالا على ذلك جامعة لندن ساوث بنك، لتقديم برامج أكاديمية حديثة تتوافق والتقدم العلمي والتكنولوجي، مستعينة في تحقيق ذلك بخبرات أكاديمية على أعلى مستوى من الكفاءة والتميز. الحضور الكريم، إن التجديد والابتكار يعد ركيزة رئيسية من ركائز تقدم المجتمع، بل أساس تغير المجتمعات وتطورها، فالاكتشافات الجديدة وراءها جهود مضنية وفكر متواصل وعمل دائم ساهم فيها العديد من المبدعين، حيث أخذوا على عاتقهم تشييد صرح البناء المعرفي من أجل عالم المستقبل الذي أضحى أكثر أهمية من ذي قبل، ولا سيما مع تعاظم المعضلات الاقتصادية والاجتماعية وغيرها من المعضلات التي يواجهها العالم. وتعتبر مؤسسات التعليم العالي من أهم المؤسسات التي تساهم في دفع عجلة التنمية بجميع أبعادها، وذلك من خلال توجيه ودفع حركة الإبداع والابتكار في المجتمع نحو أهدافها، فهي موطن الأفكار الإبداعية والاختراعات، وكذلك مركزاً لتخريج الكفاءات التي تحمل على عاتقها مسؤولية تطوير المجتمع نحو الازدهار. وتعد التكنولوجيا الحديثة من أهم الركائز الأساسية لتحقيق تنمية متوازنة للمجتمع في جميع المجالات، وتعد أساس الحضارة المعاصرة وعاملاً مؤثراً بشكل عميق في التعليم بصفة عامة والتعليم العالي بشكل خاص. ونتيجة لذلك بدأت مؤسسات التعليم العالي في كثير من البلدان بمراجعة أهدافها وسياساتها وتوجهاتها وطرح بدائل رائدة ووضع استراتيجيات محددة لمواجهة هذه التحديات ونقل التعليم العالي إلى مستويات متقدمة. وفي هذا الصدد تؤكد التوجهات العالمية المعاصرة إلى ضرورة أن يكون لمؤسسات التعليم العالي دورا رياديا فيما يتعلق بالأخذ بالمزايا والإمكانيات التي تتيحها تكنولوجيا المعلومات والاتصال، وينبغي التركيز معها على مبدأ الجودة والالتزام بالمعايير المثلى في التعليم، وهو ما تؤكد عليه أهداف منظمة اليونسكو. كما تعد ريادة الأعمال أحد دعائم الإبداع والابتكار، وترتبط بشكل كبير بالقدرة على الاستجابة للفرص المتاحة، حيث تظهر روح الريادة من مبادرات رائدة من شأنها خلق منتجات مبتكرة وأساليب إنتاجية جديدة تساهم في نجاح الأفراد والمؤسسات، والذي ينعكس بدوره على تحقيق التنمية الاقتصادية. لذا فإن ريادة الأعمال تسهم في رفع الميزة التنافسية لمؤسسات التعليم العالي من خلال طرحها برامج أكاديمية متخصصة من شأنها إكساب طلابها المهارات الريادية وتأهيلهم بما يتوائم مع متطلبات سوق العمل وخلق فرص عمل جديدة. إن خريجي التعليم العالي هم قيادات المستقبل وصناع القرار في سائر قطاعات الدولة، وأن تحقيق التنمية الشاملة يتم من خلال الاستخدام الأمثل للموارد البشرية والمادية وتوظيف التقنيات الحديثة وتبني الذكاء الاصطناعي الذي أصبح يقدم الحلول لمعظم التحديات الملحة التي تواجهها المجتمعات، وما يستلزم ذلك من وضع الأنظمة واستكمال البنى التقنية وتشجيع الاستثمارات النوعية، وذلك تحقيقا لما جاء في الخطاب السامي لجلالة الملك حمد بن عيسى آل خليفة ملك البلاد المفدى حفظه الله ورعاه في دور الانعقاد الثاني للفصل التشريعي الخامس 2019-2022 الذي أكد على تبني وتوظيف تقنيات الذكاء الاصطناعي في القطاعات الإنتاجية والخدمية. الحضور الكريم، لقد أصبح للتعليم العالي والبحث العلمي في مملكة البحرين دورا هاما في حياة المجتمع البحريني الذي يشهد تطورا ملموسا على كافة الأصعدة، خاصة مع تنامي مفهوم اقتصاد المعرفة وتزايد متطلبات واحتياجات التنمية، حيث تؤكد الوقائع جميعها أن تقدم الأمم ورقيها ونمائها أصبح يعتمد باستمرار على مدى تقدمها العلمي والتكنولوجي والمعلوماتي. ولا شك أن التعليم العالي في مملكة البحرين هو اليوم في مقدمة مقومات أو أعمال مؤتمركم هذا. وختاما أجدد شكري وتقديري للجميع، وأخص الذين أسهموا في تنظيم هذا المؤتمر المتميز، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Let's all welcome now Professor Wahib Al-Khaja, Chairman of the Board of Trustees, on stage to deliver his welcome speech.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the International Conference on Innovation, Technology, Enterprise, and Entrepreneurship, ICITEE 2019. I would like to start by thanking His Excellency the Minister of Education and Chairman of the Higher Education Council in Bahrain, Dr. Majid bin Ali Al-Naimi, for his continuous support and for the patronage of this conference. Our ministry, the Higher Education Council, and the Bahrain Quality Assurance Authority are doing a great job in transforming education and higher education in the kingdom. And we are all committed to their vision and state-of-art guiding strategies. As a chairman of the Board of Trustees of Applied Science University, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome our distinguished guests and scholars and researchers and practitioners who have come all the way to Bahrain from as far as Australia, Canada, United Kingdom, South Africa, Turkey, and many other countries. This typical conference organized by the university in association with London South Bank University and with great support from the Charter Institute of Building and the Association of Arab Universities cover important topics and themes related to the innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship, and the fourth industrial revolution, including the future directions and uses of artificial intelligence, cloud computing, virtual augmented reality, and building information modeling, BIM, amongst many other important areas. This conference will undoubtedly contribute to His Majesty the King's Vision 2030 to make the Kingdom of Bahrain a truly international knowledge hub. The wise leadership of our kingdom is enabling us to generate knowledge and conduct research that is relevant to our society and communities. ASU has signed a strategic partnership with London South Bank University, and we launched the College of Engineering nearly 3 years ago. And we are jointly organizing this second conference with LSBU as part of our strategic partnership. The theme of the conference The themes of the conference are important for many universities and companies in the Kingdom and Bahrain and beyond. The future leaders of tomorrow need to preach what they learned about innovation and technology, and undoubtedly, universities can play a major role in producing those future entrepreneurial leaders. I would like to conclude by once again thanking His Excellency Dr. Majid bin Ali Naimi for his patronage, and also Dr. Abdul Ghani Shuwaykh and his colleagues for their great support and help, and to wish you a successful conference and a pleasant stay in the Kingdom of Bahrain. Thank you very much.
Another welcome speech to be delivered by Professor David Phoenix, Vice Chancellor of London South Bank University.
Your Excellency, honoured guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to attend the opening of the second international conference that has been organised between our two universities. And I would like to especially thank colleagues from London South Bank University and from ASU that have worked so hard to pull this together. I think we all know, those of us engaged with academia, that these meetings don't simply happen, they involve a great deal of work. I would at the outset as well just like to thank especially the Chairman and the President of ASU. It's quite right to say that we have got a strategic partnership. And indeed, we've been working together now for nearly 5 years to develop our shared vision. And whilst it is a strategic partnership on paper, I think it's also a partnership that's developed through trust, friendship and close working, and that's bringing a shared understanding of the two countries together and a firm foundation on which to build. As we look forward to the 2 days of research presentation, debate, knowledge exchange and international collaboration, I'd just like to use my welcome to reflect on why research and innovation are so important to me personally and to my colleagues at LSBU. LSBU does not seek to be a research-intensive university, but research is a central part to our mission, as it is for any university that seeks to deliver on the vision of higher education. We're focused at LSBU on research that has a real-world impact, research that helps transform lives, communities, business and society. We aim to enhance our student experience through our research and enterprise activity. Our students look for research activity or professional practice in their courses, in their classrooms. And from this comes two things. The first is the requirement of a university lecturer to be engaged in external activity. It's what provides a university lecturer with their authority to teach. This authority to teach does not just come solely from qualifications, but it comes from activity as a practicing professional that's contributing to both the transmission and development of knowledge. It's this dynamic that differentiates higher education from other levels of teaching, and it's one of the core reasons why in our partnership we've sought not just to look at teaching, but sought to look at how we can gradually work together to develop research and enterprise activity across our two nations. In describing the importance of university research and innovation, I'd like to just highlight three fundamental benefits, all of which I believe are significant and drive societal impact and help define the importance of global universities today. The first is the contribution of research and enterprise to student experience. As has been said by previous speakers, we must build an environment that encourages students to go out and seek, to be restless and to experiment. These attitudes can challenge conventions and they can upset from time to time. And once permitted, they're not easy to suppress. However, these attributes in our students are important to the higher education concept of independent learning, and indeed I think they're essential to the needs of the 21st century if our students are going to provide the future leaders the world needs. The second point is the fact that research and enterprise alongside the teaching help impact on business and communities. In some cases, that impact is commercial, but it can also be through social enterprise, the way in which our students and staff improve things for the better. And these activities are key to generating improvements in the way we work and live as we seek to address the social and economic challenges that we face as a global community, not solely those linked to the fourth generation. Finally, whilst each university will make its own contribution to society, it's this combination of teaching, research and enterprise that helps define each institution's own academic environment. And it's through those missions and those environments that sustainable international partnerships can form. The combination of teaching, research and enterprise, therefore, at the university level is not only for academic or commercial gain, it's what helps create academic alliances that spread understanding and shared responsibility and help universities collaborate together to create a brighter future for our future generations. The UN has identified 17 Sustainable Development Goals aligned with the global challenges we face today. For example, some are linked to education, poverty, hunger or health, and they apply to every country. And at LSBU, we've been analysing how those 17 goals impact within the UK. And I know that ASU, which perhaps shows our shared mission, is looking similarly about how those goals impact in the Kingdom of Bahrain. Universities, I believe, have a key role in supporting these goals, both individually in their own right, but to have true impact in partnership across global boundaries. Given LSBU's focus on societal impact, applied teaching and applied research, I was especially pleased to see that when judged against these goals by the Times, LSBU was ranked in the top 200 of all worldwide universities for impact. And I was even just as pleased to see that ASU was also highly ranked within those rankings. We've been working together with ASU for 5 years. Much has been and is being achieved, and I wish to give my thanks to ASU Board of Trustees, the university management, for the partnership we're building together. This collaboration is underpinned by trust that has been developing between our organisations and a shared ambition to develop further joint teaching, research and enterprise activity that brings value through international collaboration, whilst providing benefit to local communities. We have a shared desire to make a real difference. London South Bank University is proud to be associated with ASU and through its relationship with the Kingdom of Bahrain itself. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish this conference every success, and my thanks once more to the many people who've worked so hard to organise it and to the authors that have generated so generously of their time and their expertise to contribute. Thank you.
Everyone can innovate, and innovation can be brought everywhere in all sectors. For institutions in higher education, research and innovation play a central role in the advancement of societies and economics. They foster economic growth, strengthen technological progress, and enhance jobs. The importance of research and innovation in the Arab world will be the next presentation delivered by the conference honorary guest, His Excellency Professor Amr Azzat Salama, Secretary General of Association of Arab Universities.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Your Excellency, Dr. Majid bin Ali Naimi, Minister of Education and Chair of the Higher Education Council in the Kingdom of Bahrain, represented by His Excellency Dr. Abdelghani Shweikh, Secretary General of Higher Education Council, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure, actually, to be with you today in this very important conference. And it gives me more pleasure, actually, to be for the third time this month in the Kingdom of Bahrain. Actually, I am very privileged that I attended 3 major occasions in this great country, and I had the privilege to meet His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa and spend maybe half a day with him. So I am glad and happy to be here once again. This international conference on innovation, technology, enterprise, and entrepreneurship. And I wish to express my gratitude to the Applied Science University, ASU, Kingdom of Bahrain, and London South Bank University, United Kingdom, for organizing this special event. The objective of research is contributing to knowledge, whereas objective of innovation is contributing to outcome. Example, improvement of services, quality of services, commercialization, etc. With knowledge, we can change the outcome. Hence, research can lead to innovation. It's a fact that universities contribute greatly to social development with their educational and research activities. Universities are important sources of many of the new ideas in science and technology that contribute to innovation. By producing new knowledge and exposing students to that knowledge, they not only generate new ideas, but prepare knowledge, inventive, and motivated graduates who can carry those ideas into business, non-governmental organizations, and governments. In addition, faculty members sometimes play a direct role by consulting with existing companies or even starting their own companies. The universities are undoubtedly in an extraordinary change era. The great global upheavals which shape the world today drive the fourth international industrial revolution. The change in a dramatically accelerated present, the growing demands of society towards tertiary educational institutions, and an increased influx of students, not least technological change and based on the revolutionizing communication and information technologies, are today presenting universities with considerable challenges. In the face of these global trends, traditional and future university tasks are increasingly being discussed, adapted to these development processes, and redefined and redistributed in response to global challenges. Education, science, and research are the capital of a functioning knowledge-based society and will undoubtedly remain the central tasks of the universities in the future. The progress and development of nations is measured by the extent of their scientific and industrial research production and the ability of their education to adapt to the requirements of sustainable development. From this point of view, the industrialized countries realized early the importance of investing in scientific research and supporting innovation, and placed it among their development priorities. In the Arab world today faces various obstacles and challenges when it comes to scientific research, including inadequate funding, a lack of clear focus in research priorities and strategies, weak coordination between research centers and private sector, and also the brain drain. Although the Arab university today produce 80% of Arab scientific research, which makes them an essential component of any developmental or productive policy, they still lack adequate government support. According to the UNESCO Science Report in its latest edition in November 2015, the proportion of the expenditure of all Arab countries on research and development is relatively low. The average in the Arab world is about 0.56% of the GDP, while it is 1.1% in Turkey, while it is 1.3% in Malaysia, 2.5% in Europe approximately, and 4.7% in Israel. The report showed that in high-income countries, the private sector is the main supporter of research and development, with about 80% of the expenditure in Japan. If you look at Japan, 80% of the expenditure is from the private sector. 60% in the United States of America, more than 50% in a number of European countries, while in Arab countries the expenditure of the private sector represents relatively small part, and I don't want to say the figure, but I'll say it. It's about 5% only. Although the number of researchers in the Arab countries was increasing from 123,000 researchers in 2007 to about 150,000 researchers in 2013, their proportion to the number of researchers in the world remained the same. It represents 1.9% of the total, taking into consideration that the Arab population is about 5% of the world's population. The Arab World Scientific Publication reached 44,000 publications in 2016, representing only 2.45% of the world total. The Arab world produces 110 scientific publications per million people, which is less than half of the world average of 230 published researchers per million people. Although the number of registered Arab patents, that's in 2017 actually, jumped to around 1,000 patents, it represents only 0.2% of the whole world patents. Saudi Arabia alone was granted 664 patents in 2017. The academic ranking of the Arab universities in various ranking systems, which indicate the scientific status, includes only 5 Arab universities which were present in the 2018 Shanghai ranking of world top 500 universities. And Shanghai ranking depends mainly on scientific research, as we all know. While in 2019, only 9 were present on the top 500 in the QS ranking. The new strategy for Association of Arab Universities, which is based on the Sustainable Development Goals, promotes, supports, and facilitates research, knowledge production, innovation, and entrepreneurship within and among universities to produce solutions for regional and shared global challenges. The association as a platform for Arab universities, and we have now about 408 university members in 22 Arab countries, and their education stakeholders for the region encourage and foster the Arab universities by embracing an entrepreneurial culture, establishing entrepreneurship centers, and organizing workshops and conferences about entrepreneurship. Many of Arab universities responded to the global challenges, and maybe you can see one of the examples today was the university ASU. Many of the Arab universities responded to the global challenges and adopted the entrepreneurship education and took activities such as establishing innovation and entrepreneurship centers and incubators, conferences, workshops, capacity building, supporting the exchange of experiences, offering entrepreneurship courses and venture funds. The Arab countries should improve the research and innovation system, research and innovation environment, and living environment of researchers by adopting a strategy for research and innovation. It is a simple reality that in the new knowledge-based global economy, innovation has become business critical for all sectors. Nowadays, companies, agencies, universities, colleges, and government departments which do not have innovation embedded in their planning processes and their product of service delivery will fall further and further behind their more successful international competitors. I hope in the coming years to see our universities at the same level as the universities in the developed countries in terms of scientific research, publishing, and innovation, which will certainly reflect on the rise and prosperity of Arab countries and Arab societies. Thank you very much.
The Chartered Institute of Building
is a worldwide professional body that represents construction and property professionals who work within the built environment. CIOB was founded in 1834 and has 48,000 members. It is the world's largest and most influential professional body for construction and leadership. We are so lucky today to have the president of CIOB, Professor Charles Igbo, with us today to deliver his speech of the role of the Chartered Institute of Building in promoting research and innovation.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, can I first of all start by saying a huge thank you to the organizers of this conference and for inviting me to this conference. The Chartered Institute of Building is very proud to sponsor this conference. As you've heard, the CIOB was formed 185 years ago. And we are at the heart of leadership and management of careers in the built environment. We have a royal charter which is to promote the science and practice of building and construction. Today's conference on innovation, technology, enterprise and entrepreneurship, it's something the CIOB is absolutely keen to promote and to support. The CIOB sees innovation as the successful introduction and exploitation of an idea where the idea is new to the unit of adoption. But it believes that the innovation we do in the built environment should improve the quality of life of the users of today and for tomorrow. We also believe that the innovation that should be done in the built environment should pervade from the very, very start throughout the life cycle of the built asset. So the area of conservation, the area of development, and the area of improvement of the built environment. It should be impactful. Whether it's adopted innovation, whether it's imposed innovation, whether it's emergent innovation, and whether it's technological innovation or process-driven innovation or administrative innovation, it should be impactful to the lives and the well-being of those who use the built asset. We also believe that knowledge plays a key role in innovation. And CIOB sees the difference between creativity on one hand and innovation. Of course, they work together. But it strongly believes that the key difference between the creativity, the idea generation, and the innovation is the fact that innovation is a complex social process, and people are the heart of innovation. You can be a creative writer on your own, but you cannot truly innovate and be impactful without the societal complexity. So it's important that we have people and culture at the heart of innovation. There are a number of ways in which the CIOB promotes innovation. One is through the award we give to those who innovate. Every year, the CIOB runs the Chartered Manager of the Year Award, Construction Manager of the Year Award. It's been going on for over 40 years. And it's for those who show true innovation in the projects that touches the lives of those who use the project. We also promote innovation through sharing of knowledge. I know throughout this conference we'll be hearing technological improvements in building information modeling, in artificial intelligence, in the Internet of Things, in big data analytics. This is what the CIOB also promotes. And we promote that through a number of ways, through our magazines, through our workshops. We also promote innovation through inspired learning. The CIOB has an academy where we train budding professionals, where we support professionals through workshops, through massive open online courses. And we also promote innovation through supporting new ideas. We give out scholarships to students, scholarship to institutions, and we also give out scholarships and real money to institutions we believe are at the forefront of promoting innovation. We strongly support this conference, and we hope that there will be real knowledge gained and real exchange of knowledge throughout this conference. I hope this conference is successful, and I look forward to meeting and discussing with the delegates. Thank you very much.
Professor Wahib Al-Khaja, Chairman of the Board of Trustees, and Professor Ghassan Awad are invited on stage now. We are delighted to give a token of appreciation to our conference patron that will be given to His Excellency Dr. Abdul Ghani Shawikh, the Secretary General of Higher Education Council, on behalf of His Excellency Dr. Majid bin Ali Naimi, the Minister of Education. We also like to acknowledge our keynote speakers for their valuable contribution and remarkable impact on this conference. Your Excellency Professor Amir Azzat Salama, Secretary General of Association of Arab Universities. Professor David Phoenix, Vice Chancellor of London South Bank University. Professor Charles Egbo, President of the Chartered Institute of Building, CIOB. Professor Paul Ivey, Deputy Vice Chancellor and Chief Business Officer of London South Bank University. Thank you, dear keynote speakers. Finally, another set of token of appreciation go to our partners and media sponsors for their support to make this event successful. The Grove Hotel, GD Event, أخبار الخليج Newspaper, الأيام Newspaper, البلاد Newspaper, الوطن Newspaper, Gulf Daily News, GDN, Daily Tribune, and The Entrepreneur Magazine. Thank you all, and you are all invited now on stage for the group picture.
I'm really delighted to be introducing Professor David Phoenix, the Vice Chancellor of London South Bank University and the CEO of London South Bank University Group. David holds a number of positions in the higher education sector. He was made an officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire for services to science and higher education in 2010 and appointed as a Deputy Lieutenant for Greater London in 2015. David will be talking to us on research and enterprise in the United Kingdom. David, you're welcome.
Thank you, John. I suppose I should say, just to give 100% clarity at the start, although I am involved with a range of UK bodies, both with Universities UK as funding lead and previously as part of the Minister's Brexit Advisory Group, just for 100% clarity, the talk today is my views and doesn't bear any links to any of those bodies. I don't want to end up going back and getting various people saying, well, why were you saying that? The topic I was given to speak on is reasonably broad, about the future direction of research and enterprise in the UK. I thought the starting point, which follows on actually quite nicely, I think, from Your Excellency's speech, is perhaps just to remind people about why research and enterprise is so important within the UK in the current climate. The UK has approximately 0.9% of the world's population, but we house around 4% of the world's researchers. And if you look at the output from those researchers, we have somewhere in the region of 11% of the world's citations and around 15% of the world's most highly cited papers. UKRI also houses Innovate UK, which is the body that does a lot of work around SME engagement, around innovation and around tech transfer. So the idea is that that gives a new vehicle to start looking at how we want to fund and support research and innovation moving forward. And that in itself is quite a sensitive issue, because the very purpose of having all the research councils under one chair was to enable debate about how that research funding's focused. So the government's invested in some of the global challenge funds to try and generate multidisciplinary research addressing some of the big world challenges. But there's also a question as whether or not it might reprofile that funding, which is quite a sensitive issue, because if you're reprofiling, basically it means you're giving more to one area, but you're taking it away from another. So that's going to generate some quite interesting discussion. So we're in an environment where we have a completely new regulatory regime. So that's the first point. The second point is, I'm afraid I can't get away without mentioning Brexit. We are in the process, and have been for quite a number of years, discussing what Brexit means for the UK and what the future will look like after the referendum that we held. And there's been a lot of debate around Brexit in terms of what it means for research and enterprise. If you ask anybody from any UK university, they would probably 99.9% of them would say that the priority is to remain associated with the Horizon programs. And the reason that there's a desire to do that is because the Horizon programs give access not only to funding, but they give access to infrastructure, they give access to partnerships, and it facilitates engagement across quite a wide range of countries and areas. The debate, though, I think wrongly is focused on the money that we receive from Europe. And the reason I think we need to flag that at this point is because if you look at Horizon 2020, the UK has done well. It's received about 13.5% of the Horizon funding, so only just behind Germany in terms of the funding that will come into the UK, or has been coming into the UK. But I said earlier, our total R&D spends around 225 billion over that 5-year period. If you look at it in percentage terms, therefore, the amount of funding we get from Europe is only about 3%. So actually, the argument about volume of funding isn't really where the challenge is in terms of our association with the European Union. It's the argument about people, it's the argument about partnerships, and the argument about access that's actually really important. There are two other things to reflect on if Brexit progresses and we leave. The approach has been to say we should stay associated with future Horizon programs, and certainly in terms of a transition period to minimise disruption, that's true. But the UK has been a very strong voice in Europe about using European funding to focus on quality of research projects, supported by Germany. There are a lot of voices in Europe that are arguing that funding from European Union should also take into account geographical need and economic need. So in other words, not just looking at quality, but seeking to redistribute the funding to those European countries that are seeking to grow their economy and moving away from a purely quality-based measure. If that happens, then
I think we need to assume that whatever the shape of those future European programmes are, they will not give us the same benefit in the UK as the past Horizon 2020 programmes. So from my perspective, and there'll be a number of colleagues in the UK that disagree with this, yes, it's important we try and remain associated, certainly in the short term, but I don't think we can be blinkered in assuming that the medium-term Horizon funding will be the same as the past. And there has to be a consideration about how much are we willing to pay for what benefit are we going to get. And we certainly won't get, I think, the same level of benefit that we've had in previous years. I said there were 2 points. One is the way in which the Horizon frameworks are changing. The other, where there is an impact that's not often considered, is the fact that the impact of European funding, although it's only 3%, differentially impacts different areas. So the research intensives, the big research intensive universities in the UK, about 10% of their funding comes from Europe. Therefore, we'd need to stabilise that to make sure that we don't destabilise those institutions. And there's subject variation. So a lot of the industry income, as you would expect, is tied into STEM-based activity and innovation. If you look at media, if you look at the classics, if you look at areas that are less tech and industry focused, over a quarter of their research funding comes from Europe. So if you're trying to keep a dynamic research and enterprise culture, one of the questions the UK is going to have to ask post-Brexit is how do we support those areas? And given I know there's a lot of people in the room that have got an engineering background and could be sitting there thinking, well, if engineering's okay, are we too worried about classics and media? I think it's really important to remember that when you're looking at innovation and creativity, there's a need to really look at the interface moving forward between different disciplines, to look at different ways of thinking, looking at ethics, looking at why we should do things, not just what we can do. And those disciplines can be really important. Perhaps one of the best examples is the Ebola outbreak, which colleagues may remember. There was some fantastic science and research done looking at new vaccine generation, but actually the biggest impact on stemming the flow of the Ebola virus wasn't actually through science. It was through some of the social sciences and understanding cultural variation, cultural habits, and how those habits and the way in which, for example, people were treating the dead was leading to the spread of disease. So it's very dangerous to compartmentalise some of the subject areas to say, well, it doesn't really matter if that's impacted versus this. So in terms of Brexit, it's less about the 3% money we get. It's more about how do we access the large projects, how do we access the facilities, how do we deal moving forward with the subject variations. The third point I was going to make in terms of UK context is the UK is actually geographically quite a small country. It doesn't take too long to go from one side to the other, but we have a lot of regional variation. So if you look in the north of England, for example, the regions in the north are generally about 7 to 15% below the national average in terms of their productivity. So when you're looking at an approach to develop research and innovation, one of the questions you need to ask is, what do you want that to look like from a UK perspective? Because you could actually really drive innovation in terms of GDP turnover by actually just putting loads of cash into the south of England and London. But that would lead to increasing inequalities with other parts of the country, which is partly the challenge we have in the UK at the moment in terms of overcoming some of those inequalities to make people feel a shared ownership of some of the challenges we have. And the reason that's especially important in terms of Brexit, linking back, is because we don't just get funding for research. About 25% of the European funding is from the European Research Council. About 15% of the funding from Europe comes from what's called structural funds. And those structural funds don't just drive investment in infrastructure, which is key for innovation, they also drive the interface between research and SMEs, small, medium enterprises. And we don't currently really, other than Innovate UK, have structures in place to replicate that. And then the final point in terms of environment, the UK runs the Research Excellence Framework, and we have another exercise in 2021 that judges the quality of research, and it's currently looking at developing a knowledge exchange framework which similarly looks at the innovation and knowledge base of different universities. There's clearly an overlap between the two, but there's been some quite interesting work done to look at those grouping of institutions based on their capability and infrastructure. So regulatory framework's changed, relationship with Europe and therefore the rest of the world is changing, because you can't take Europe in isolation of the rest of the world. We're getting increased levels of regional inequality that research and innovation is expected to address through our industrial strategy, and we have a number of new regulatory frameworks that are being put in place to test our efficiency as universities. So there's a lot going on. So what does that mean for the future? Well, the future in general in the UK for research and innovation is incredibly positive. The first is the debate around Brexit has really reignited interest in international collaboration. Because the government's realised, as I said earlier, how many collaborations we have and the joint publications and the impact of inward investment, there is a really big push to look at how we can support international development. And that's globally, not just within Europe. So the opportunity to work with the Kingdom of Bahrain and with other Arab states actually is greater now than it's probably been for quite a number of years. And some of the suggestions that have been put forward are, for example, the creation of an international version of the UK Research Partnership Fund. The Research Partnership Fund is roughly about 1 billion of funding. It's used to match funds, so it's attracted about 2 billion in round terms of industry funding, and it supports infrastructure and partnership development. So one of the suggestions is perhaps we should have a new research council, a new grouping, which has a similar level of funding, so that if the minister's visiting different countries and the opportunity for collaboration comes up, there is a pot of funding that allows agile, supportive interaction. And certainly you may well see things like the Newton Fund and some of the overseas investments growing in terms of scale to support international collaboration. The UK has also realised it needs a global talent strategy. About 15% of our researchers come from Europe, and we also have a range of researchers from a wide range of other countries. So the Home Office is currently looking at our visa strategy to say, well, how can we actually, for highly skilled workers, support easier access to the UK? And how can we provide support in terms of, for students, postgraduate and graduate sponsorship and work opportunities? So there's a big shift in the mentality of the UK to recognise the fact that actually we need to be attracting the best talent if we're going to compete on this global marketplace. There's discussion about new fellowship programmes sponsored by some of the academies like the Royal Society and the Academy of Engineering. It wouldn't easily be able to replicate the European systems, but systems that over time would build in stature and standing to help attract some of that global talent. And there is a target to grow basic research. And the reason we need to grow the basic research is if you don't have the basic research, you don't generate the industry investment and you don't generate the world positioning. So the importance of basic research is seen as needing further investment. And to that end, the government has committed to trying to move from quite a low level of investment in terms of research and innovation. It's only 1.7% in the UK, to 2.4% of GDP by 2027, moving to 3% hopefully shortly after. And that commitment has been also given by Labour. So whichever colour of government or coalition is in, a commitment to almost double our investment in research and innovation over a reasonably short time frame is in place. The problem is that's easier said than done. I mean, the first stage is getting a government that's willing to do it, but the second is how would you actually do that? And we have a couple of key challenges. The first is how do you coordinate that? Because our government department for health has very significant R&D in health. Our department for BASE, so our Department for Enterprise and Innovation, supports business. Our Department for Education supports universities. Our Department for Government and Local Communities supports local infrastructure investment. So the government has a challenge to say, how do we coordinate all this money to make sure that the money we're putting in from government is being appropriately used and actually we're able to leverage that. The other issue is around capacity and capability. We currently do not have the level of infrastructure needed across all the universities in the UK to deliver the activity required to support 2.4 to 3% GDP activity. So you're starting to see research funds being released to capacity build in the UK to target additional institutions and new institutions that can really be competitive internationally in terms of new market areas. The other big change is that whilst the government is recognising the importance for the basic research, and that remains extremely important, so the measures there are things like your field-weighted citations and your outputs, etc. There is a much greater push on the utilisation of research to support economic prosperity, in other words, the innovation and enterprise, and therefore the new metrics through things like the knowledge exchange that are being developed. To give you an idea of the importance of that GDP spend, only 1/3 of it comes from government, 2/3 of it come from business. So if you're really going to move from 1.7% to maybe 3% of GDP, first question is 1/3 to 2/3 actually the right proportion of government spend versus industry spend? And of that 2/3 industry spend, 1/3 of it, as I said earlier, half of it is UK business. The other half is actually overseas investment that's being attracted by the strength of the research base. There are big questions then around that, because how much inward investment do you want? And what does that mean in areas of technological development and transfer that have implications for national security? So there's a lot of debate, for example, about telecoms and tech and the fourth industrial revolution. You know, if you have a lot of other countries coming in and tapping into our patents and our expertise, what does that mean then in terms of how that's being developed if that technology and idea is being taken back to other states? So there's a lot of debate around about how that 2/3 is made up and what it might look like in the future. The government's recently talked about setting up a brand new, I'll call it a research council, but I don't think they've quite crystallised the thinking yet as to what it is, but based on the American Advanced Research Projects Agency. So they're looking at a new vehicle which will have substantial investment to short-circuit bidding times, bringing together industry and academics around new key technological innovations. In America, a lot of that work's been focused on security and military. From the UK perspective, it's looking at tech capture widely rather than military or security. And that leads to questions about, well, what are going to be the areas of specialism? We currently have two really strong areas that we are really globally competitive global leaders in. One is life sciences, drug development. The other is around aerospace and automotive. But if we lost our Rolls-Royce or a GlaxoSmithKline, we would be in trouble. Therefore, through this, what new areas could we develop? So one of the areas, for example, in the industrial strategy is looking at space technology. How rapidly can we move to mobilise that area? So there's potentially new vehicles that can bring together funding for advanced research between business and universities. There's an industrial strategy that's seeking to map and lay out a blueprint for the way that will work. And the government's talked about something called a shared prosperity fund, which will replace European structural funds to help support the infrastructure development. The challenge for us on the shared prosperity fund is we don't currently, well, one, we don't know how much it will be, but two, we also don't have the governance arrangements in place to manage it. So how do you make sure it's utilised alongside the 7 billion per annum that's going through UKRI? So, in summary, I think the question I was set was, what does the future for research and enterprise look like in the UK, especially given all these changes? Well, the first is, whatever the shape of the government moving forward, there is going to be significantly increased investment in research and enterprise. There is, again, whatever shape of government, going to be significantly increased focus on international collaboration and how we facilitate that collaboration across countries, which I think provides great opportunities for the kind of people in this room that are working collaboratively to try and make a difference. There is definitely going to be greater recognition of translational research whilst not reducing funding, probably increasing funding actually in basic research. So certainly for institutions like London South Bank, where a lot of our research is applied and we're looking at translational research with business, the opportunity for significant growth exists during this new environment. One of the areas of focus is to try and make sure that over the next few years, we minimize any short-term disruption. So that's why I said things like trying to remain associated with Horizon 2020, even if it's not really value for money, I think will be seen will be seen positively, so long as the bill isn't too excessive, to try and make sure we get a transition over the next few years to what is a very, very different environment and approach. And the final point I've made is that actually I think this debate means that within the UK there will be much greater accountability and visibility of research spend, not just within government but within the media. Because to date, for example, if you take the European case, we pay our bill to Europe and then we're quite successful in getting money back. In the future, that money will have to come out of the government, out of taxes. So it will be competing directly with schools, with health, with other areas. So the visibility of that funding is greater, and it will mean that universities, industry and other public and private sector bodies are going to have to justify why they should get that money, and they're going to be able to have to evidence the benefit of that funding. So I think the way in which that's measured means that in addition to the field-weighted citations, there will, over the next few years, by necessity, be attempts to further quantify the benefit of research and innovation for UK at large, so the taxpayer can see why they're putting what is a very, very substantial sum into this area.
One thing that caught my attention is the point you made around capacity and capability, building up and ramping up if we are to meet up the increased investment of about 2 to 3% GDP. In your view, what and how should universities be addressing the issue of capacity and capability? And what's your take on how industry and employers should be coping with that issue of capacity building and capability building? Thank you.
I think there isn't a single answer to that. I think each institution needs to look at its strategy and what its ambition is. So I'm going to try and give an answer from LSBU's perspective. And I should say before I do that, probably the one thing that won't work is for every university to pretend they're an expert in everything. If you're going to actually be successful, you've got to identify what your strengths are. So if I look at LSBU's approach, we're doing a number of things. One is, yes, we're looking at trying to bring people in with additional capability to engage in research and enterprise activity. But we're also altering the shape of our workforce to increase the number of industrial staff, so staff who are actually able to support translation. And we're investing quite heavily in infrastructure to help drive business engagement. So our biggest growth in engineering, for example, looking towards Paul, about a third of our engineering department now is actually linked to business investment. So that rapid growth is based on that engagement with industry. So for us, we're shaping the workforce and we're putting in systems to work with business. And as part of that working with business, we're being clear what our strengths are, and we're not being overly protective of things like IP. A lot of universities say, oh, it's all about IP, it's all about IP. Yeah, if you're Harvard or Cambridge, IP matters because you've got infrastructure. The majority of university collects IP like a badge and just spends a lot of money on maintaining it. They don't really know how to innovate it. You need the business. So it's around partnership. And the final point I would make is you need to look outside the UK, which is why we're trying to develop links with institutions like ASU, because the vision for LSBU, which perhaps is a little bit mad, but if we end up with a number of key partners with shared vision around the world, not only can we combine teaching, but we can combine research capability and capacity. And it means if a company in Bahrain comes to ASU and says, can you deliver this contract, ASU not only has access to their expertise, but to LSBU's expertise. And if the teams work together, you can actually even work across time zones in the way industries are used to. So there's a lot of different strands, I think, Charles.
Thank you very much. Can I welcome any question or any observation or comments from our delegates, please?
Thank you. We're fortunate to have some of the students from the Applied Science University. They're all sitting over there. They're on one of the courses that we are jointly running with LSBU. Dave, can I prompt you to say something of your vision, that how important is research and enterprise to the students who are going through an undergraduate program? Because the focus here has been very much heavily on, and correctly on, how we can transform the knowledge exchange process. But I know you've got a very strong view of how the students themselves should see the benefit of this work.
I think if this is working, with a university, if you're looking at the definition of a university, a globally recognized definition, it requires a university to undertake not just teaching, but scholarship. And scholarship in the broadest sense is around research and enterprise. What makes a university is the way in which, for that university, the teaching, the research, and the enterprise interface to create an environment that helps challenge and develop individuals. So I feel very strongly that as ASU continues to grow, the research and enterprise strands and the way in which they shape the curricula, but also the way in which they shape the assessments and the opportunities for students to do peer-to-peer work and engage in critical thinking is absolutely essential. And the point I've made back in the UK, as well as elsewhere when I've talked about this, is the fact that actually, going back to the comments on the next industrial revolution, the technology is such now that knowledge does not differentiate universities. A lot of our engineering courses are accredited through places like the professional bodies that Charles is associated with. That means that they've all got a very similar range of knowledge. They have to for you to get the accreditation. So what differentiates universities isn't necessarily the knowledge and the degree, it's the learning environment. And that learning environment, the thing universities can do that private sector doesn't do, is invest in those extracurricular activities and those programs of activity that develop the critical thinking and the engagement that we need in future leaders. So it's not an add-on, it's absolutely core to creating high quality universities that can partner.
Thank you. Any further questions?
To build on Professor Paul's question as well, because I was thinking about the research excellence framework and what happened in the UK in the past with the research assessment exercise, then the research excellence framework, and some of it was done at the expense of teaching. And this is reality. We have seen the teaching excellence framework, how some universities, Russell Group universities, have scored low in teaching. Now the shift in resources, if you want to apply both the research excellence framework and the teaching excellence framework, I'm assuming it will have implications on the research output. For sure, because when you mention the figures about the 11% in terms of the word citations and the 4% in terms of the research, etc., if you shift some resources to excel in teaching, there must be some, I don't know, compensation at some stage in terms of the research output. Do you think this would have some, I know you have done very well at LSBU because you've done well in the research excellence framework, and you have done well in the teaching excellence framework. But we have seen the university doing extremely well in the research excellence framework and extremely badly in the teaching excellence framework. Do you think there will be some implications in the future because of the teaching excellence framework?
I think the danger with frameworks, I think, is that they drive knee-jerk reactions and push all institutions to an homogenous middle. And one of the strengths in the UK is that we have a diversity of institutions with different areas of focus. So again, rather than speak for other institutions, I'll just speak for LSBU. At LSBU, we recognise the importance of research, enterprise and teaching. So all our academic contracts, staff are expected to engage in all activities. What they're not expected to do is be excellent in all those activities. So our academic framework that supports the promotion route means that if you're an excellent researcher and you're generating a lot of income and a lot of outputs and you're shaping your subject area, yes, you can apply for promotion, but you also have to say what you've done in terms of teaching. So you can be excellent in research and doing some good stuff on teaching, you can get promoted. Similarly though, you could put forward a case that says, I'm excellent in teaching. The challenge I have and the lively debate I have sometimes with staff is, if I'm meeting with staff, I'll sometimes get colleagues say, well, I'm a good teacher, I should be promoted. And my response tends to always be the same, which is, well, I'm sorry, I kind of expect you to be a good teacher as part of the job. If you want to be promoted for teaching and learning, show me how what you're developing in the classroom is influencing your subject area and gaining recognition for you as an individual in the university in terms of pedagogic development. So my belief is, I agree with you, it's dangerous to jump from one to the other. There are the big research intensives that do prioritise research, and to be honest, I'm very pleased they do because we need that global capacity. But what I think is dangerous is to jump backwards and forwards, and for LSBU, it's recognition of all three elements and the fact that we try and work as a team, so we expect everyone to engage, but the spikes of excellence can be in different pillars for each individual.
Thank you. I have a gentleman with a question there.
Thank you for the brilliant speech, actually. I found it quite hard to decouple your speech from Brexit. Now, I think the polls showed that researchers, scientists, they voted overwhelmingly to remain in Europe because you mentioned the consequence of which Horizon Europe funding, actually maybe UK won't have an access to the next round of funding, which is between 21 and 27, I think. Now, and you mentioned there is a new line of funding for research and development, which is required in order to boost the economy and leverage a little bit the GDP. Now, are you in the direction of conventional funding for research projects or more for a new format of funding based around missions, I would say? And these missions are to direct innovation, research and development to more societal goals, such as climate change, for instance, with a more collaborative thinking in entrepreneurship.
Okay, so there's 2 or 3 points there if I can try and pick up. I'm going to try and avoid getting pulled too much into the Brexit debate because we get quite a lot of that at home. I think most people in universities in the UK were pro-Remain. I certainly was pro-Remain. The trouble is we had a vote that went a different way. And the challenge I think that we need to put to the sector, irrespective of what happens post-Brexit, is to think about different options. If we only focus on the way Europe is now and our engagement now, we are not engaging as academics in challenging our own thinking about what the future might look like. And I'm not sure that the European structures will mirror what we've currently got in 5 years anyway. So I think
I suspect that if you were to take a blank sheet of paper from the UK's perspective and you were to look at what you would get if you were going to invest that 4 or 5 billion a year that we get from Europe, I suspect it won't look exactly the same as it currently does in terms of what Europe provides. So I think it's worth us looking at what that future scenarios could be like so that we've looked at the different options. In terms of those options, as I tried to indicate, there has to be investment in basic research, because basic research is what drives a lot of the new ideas. It also generates some of the very high impact business engagement and inward investment into the country. It's not just the research itself, it's that collection of individuals that are leading in terms of really high impact basic research. So I think there will be increased funding for basic research. Governments already indicate there will be increased funding for basic research. I suspect, although it's not been stated yet, I suspect that there will be an increasingly strong case for increasing what's called the QR funding as well, post the Research Excellence Framework. So that's capacity building funding. So I think there will be increased basic research funding. The point I would make, though, is that if you're going to address then the need to also look at productivity, regional variation, and look at how we're going to actually engage with future opportunities and future developments, we also need to be clear on how we're going to measure success of applied research. And that thinking is currently behind the basic research. We don't have effective governance arrangements. The closest we have is Innovate UK. And it does not have the capacity that Europe does to support SMEs. So the reason I specifically flagged the applied is because actually the basic we're pretty damn good at, we just need to do more of it and build capacity. The applied we're okay at, but we don't have the scale of infrastructure and understanding of what we want in the future, and we need to invest in both. The only final point I would make is, though, that in doing that investment, there is really strong support, certainly from me and the sector, around what's called the Haldane principle, which is the government needs to support the infrastructure and the investment, but it shouldn't direct exactly what then goes on the ground. Those ideas need to flourish, and the reason for that is governments can often be quite short-term, and they can often get it wrong. Therefore, it needs to feed up from the academics in terms of the best way to utilise. So I'm being greedy, I'm saying we want both, and we need to do most work around the applied in terms of governance.
Thank you. I remember attending a workshop which was talking about employment in the construction industry in the United Kingdom. And as United Kingdom suffers from a shortage, significant shortage of employee in the construction industry, I cannot remember the exact figure, but I think it was around 25,000 employee. I think UK needs about, the construction industry in United Kingdom needs about 25,000 employee each year for 5 years to fulfill this gap. Now, with the problem you previously mentioned, I think this situation is going to be impacted even more, especially Brexit, and maybe in the longer term, an indirect way, it's going to impact the research about the construction subject. Now, does UK have any strategies to address this issue?
Okay. It's actually not just only in construction. Actually, our health service at the moment, especially because we've got an ageing population, is under significant strain, and the demand for health workers in all different areas actually is very significant. So we have a number of sectors, priority sectors, where we're seeking to increase the number of graduate entrants, and actually not just graduate entrants, but individuals at what we would call level 3, so kind of A-level, pre-university entry grade. I would say the biggest innovation around that has been around the apprenticeship programs. So what the government sought to do is charge a levy to large employers and utilise that levy to fund training programs for apprenticeships. So at LSBU, it comes back to what I said earlier about not seeing the research and enterprise and teaching as disjointed, but bringing them together. So our work with employers, we work with well over 1,000 employers. When we bring them in, we don't just get them to contribute to the teaching, but we then try and work with them on their consultancy needs, etc. That means that by working with those employers, we've got roughly around about 7,000 sponsored students, and we've now got roughly around about 2,000 apprentices. And I think those apprenticeship numbers will continue to grow as funding is released to target programs that provide not just the knowledge, but the skills and experience and competencies for work. And that would apply in both construction and engineering areas as well as in life sciences. So it's not a full solution, but there are solutions being put forward to try and start addressing some of the issues.
Can I just support what David has just said? I spent quite some time in meetings with other presidents of professional bodies looking at how Brexit might impact the UK construction industry. And I was privileged in writing a report that went to the government on the impact and what we need to do. Because if you look at the UK construction industry, just take London, for example, 60% of all construction site workers in London are non-UK British passport holders. What happens if a number of them decide to move back to their countries? And 50,000 UK workers at the moment, over 55, will retire in the next 15 years. That's a huge number. Yeah. So apprenticeship is one important way. Apprenticeship at all levels, level 3, all the way. The role of the Construction Industry Council is important, and so is the role of the Construction Industry Training Board. So training is important at all levels. We also want the interplay between colleges, further education, higher education institutes, and employers to work closely in addressing not just the skill shortages, but the skill gaps. I mean, today and tomorrow we're talking about technology, improving technology. There are some of existing workers that haven't got the technology for tomorrow. So you talk about the skill shortages, you talk about the skill gaps. Those who exist, have they got the requisite skills and knowledge? It's a huge issue, but I'm glad that the construction industry, right from the professional bodies to the employers and the institutions, are working in tandem to make sure we address those. And it's a real big issue we need to address very quickly. I'm conscious of time. Can I just take one or two more questions, please?
Can I just before the question, I think, okay. I think the point that Charles made there actually is really interesting, important. And you may note at the start, I was introduced as Vice Chancellor, but also Group CEO. And one of the challenges in the UK is we compartmentalise education, and that's the same in many countries, and I suspect probably similar in the Kingdom of Bahrain. What we've done with LSBU is actually create a group structure where we have now set up our own college and a number of schools. So what we're seeking to try and do is engage industry from students at the age of 12. Because the problem is, people often don't know which courses to follow or which pathways to follow and where to go for advice. So we bring our employers in to start engaging with 12-year-olds so that by the time they get to 18, some go into apprenticeship, some go into employment, some go on to university. But it starts to join up the ecosystem that looks at what the skills needs are for the future. And it starts to engage people from all ages in terms of the opportunities that are available. And that joined up approach, I feel, is somewhat lacking. And it's not just for the teaching, but actually engagement with enterprise. If you look at the European Union's entrepreneurial competency framework, which mainly applies to universities, it applies just as well to colleges and schools, looking at the kind of skills that entrepreneurs should be developing through their educational process. And these young 12-year-old kids, you know, some of the things they're achieving is absolutely amazing in terms of the enterprise and their interest in technological development. And they come up with completely different ways of thinking to those of us that are perhaps a bit tied in our ways.
Colleagues, I'm very conscious of time. I'll take two questions, one from my left from Senate, and then the last one, please.
Yeah, I'm glad to understand that you mentioned there is possibility of great international collaboration for research and innovation in future. Do you think that there will be representing, I mean, coming from Australia, Australian universities are keen to understand whether there is possibility of greater collaboration that will happen in terms of Commonwealth related kind of possibility of collaborative research. Now, what happened in EU was a federation of a collection of several countries. Therefore, there was possibility of greater collaboration internationally. Now, with Brexit, UK leaving EU, that opportunity won't be there, and possibly that could be created through resurgence of Commonwealth type of collaboration. Do you think there will be any opportunity like that?
I think that there's certainly interest in the Commonwealth. I think the international development focus is broader than Commonwealth, though it is truly global. Because if you look at the inward investment in the UK, it's grown about 70% since around 2010. Most of that growth has actually come from China and India, where governments are putting a lot of funding in. So I think that the approach will be quite wide-reaching. The interesting thing and advantage with the Commonwealth, if you look at countries like Australia, there's higher levels of commonality in terms of the educational quality systems. So if you want to develop partnerships around research and teaching, there's already a framework in place that can make that move more quickly in a number of areas. So I think there is interest, and I think there will be opportunity, though, that will be broader than just the Commonwealth countries, is my sense.
Thank you. Please.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. But do you think that we should go back to the roots of the problem? Should go back to the teachers of the schools? We should take care of them and pay them as much as we can to raise good students, to go to the university and asking to be teachers, not engineering or medicines. In that case, we're going to have a good engineers and good medicine guys.
I think that within the university sector, it's important to recognise the need to professionalise the teaching practice. The research often gets focus because, as I said earlier, especially on basic research, people understand what good looks like. You know, almost no matter what your discipline, if somebody's got a range of papers in Nature or in some of the very high-ranking journals, people know that is good. So it's quite well defined. The challenge with teaching often is there can be, and I apologise, don't everyone jump down my phone, but there can be a view, especially from colleagues who've been teaching for a lot of years actually, there can be a view that teaching involves standing up talking at people. And actually, professional practice and the rate of change in pedagogic intervention now is incredibly fast. I mean, we're looking at currently nearly a 30 million intervention just in the utilisation of digital technologies to support student experience. And if you're using that technology, in fact, my daughter in her school, when she's at school studying, the schools are using technologies that push information on assessments and reading lists on the pupils' phones. This is what's happening at 15 and 16. I know of colleges in the UK where they're using Alexa and media to provide health and well-being support to people. The whole of the teaching approach is changing, and it's no longer about large lectures and talking at people. So I think the need to professionalise teaching, to recognise it with appropriate qualifications and support, and to build that into promotion routes is really important. But as I said earlier, good teaching should be the expectation. If you want to get promoted through teaching, you should be having an impact outside your institution, is my personal belief. And certainly I know ASU has been doing a lot of late to try and start looking at CPD and development around the teaching practice. And to be honest, it's that development that allows debate not just about what you do in the classroom, but how that then links to the research and the enterprise. And the teaching for PhD students has a different dimension again to the teaching for a first-year undergrad student. So there's lots of different specialisms and opportunity.
Colleagues, thank you so much. We've come to the end of this session. Can we show our appreciation to David in our usual way?
Thank you, Professor David, and thank you, Professor Charles, for the very informative session. And we would like to welcome you for lunch at the ground floor. I would like to remind you that we'll have 3 parallel sessions starting at 1 p.m. All the best. Thank you. Thank you.